We're ready for Q&A. Now, here's how it's going to work. That's microphone number 2, microphone number 3, microphone number 4. Ben has a microphone up here in case we need to have any assistance from the board members to respond to specific questions. We ask you to do this. From 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock today in this room, we had a religious service and we heard some preaching. It's not the time to get up and pontificate and preach about some issue. And you know we all can get into that because we're passionate about what we do. We want to try to communicate and relate questions and answers. All right? But we understand the passion that people have, so we'll be patient with you if you get past that. But we're just trying to give you a little bit of a reminder to try to keep with us with the program. We don't want anybody trying to ask a question or follow up from in the back or the side. Please line up and come to a microphone. And the reason we want to do that, we want to hear your question and we want you to hear our answers. Now, for anybody that's still standing, we have chairs over in this far section that you're more than welcome to come up the front row or come around the back. Come around the front here. You can grab a seat so you don't have to stand up. And with that, Louis, Brian, and I will be down at the table, and we'll field your questions accordingly. We'll start with microphone number 2, 3, and 4, and we'll do that in rotation.
Jerry, did you lose your coat?
All right, well, microphone number 3.
I know better.
Is it on? Okay. Good
Please
afternoon.
state your name and where you're from.
Good afternoon, Louis J. and Brian. Joseph Amash, Branch 83, Capital District, Albany, New York. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't pontificate. In the last 6 months, the Postal Service announced the elimination of 7,500 jobs. To put that into perspective, that's 15,600,000 work hours. The announcement of 7,500 positions were not just didn't come out of nowhere. They didn't just come out of a hat. They have to be some form of plan, whatever. In the field, we have many, if not the majority of ES employees working well over 8 hours a day, 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day. I've even talked to people here that said they're working that amount of time in the last 2 days. When is NAPS going to produce and publish? Question. When is NAPS going to produce and publish a position on these proposals? Does NAPS plan, question 2, does NAPS plan to file an injunction to slow down the process that will start on Friday, and if not, why not? And when the announcement of the 7,500 positions were made, did the Postal Service provide NAPS with a list of the targeted positions? And if not, did we ask for a list of the targeted positions? And thank you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Joe, I have a pretty long memory, but stay there so I can, if I don't answer some of
I
the
don't want
questions.
to pontificate.
Okay. I'm not going to pontificate. I can't even spell the word.
Me neither.
First thing I want to get off the hand, we can't file an injunction. We don't even know what the announcements are.
Okay.
We have no idea about filing an injunction until we actually have specifics on doing things. Do we have an attorney that we can go to? Certainly. We got an attorney working on a bunch of things right now. So we're going to do that. Now, the specifics in those 7,500 jobs, as specific as you can get, there are vacancies included in that. It's about 3,000 postmaster's positions that are in suspended or on hold for one reason or another, or vacant there. And then there's some that's in the district and in the southeast that they were already claiming out that people are still in right now. So we don't have a fine breakdown, but that's the 7,500 jobs that they're talking about. That affects about 2,500 truly EAS and NAPS members maybe in there. Now, we'll share, once we get a breakdown and know what's happening to those members, we always fight for the members' rights, and we go into specific cases. So once they are affected, we'll do and take whatever avenue that we're going to need to take to fight for our members, make sure they're being treated fairly and given their rights ahead. Now, as far as you go, position papers, our position papers, you can say whatever, you can use it, but we target our ideas in the Postal Service, Postal Supervisors magazines. We do it on NAPS HQ to you. We do it by voice on the hotline. We do it on Facebook. We do it on Twitter. Those are all coming from the resident officers. A lot of our national officers write positions, papers if you want, but that's our ideas. That's the way we feel. But it's number one that all the board members and the resident officers say, hey, we got to fight for the members' rights and make sure they're being treated fairly. Let's be honest, we've lost 46 billion pieces of mail since 2006. We've lost the first-class volume. It used to pay all the bills, basically, that going on with the internet that's taking that volume away. There are going to be reductions. We have to be fair. For us to keep the supervisors' positions out here, we got to be fair and realize that, hey, we got to do certain things and absorb that loss because there's less jobs available because we need less people. And, you know, those are the type of things that we are looking at. We have to be reasonable because we need to make sure that we don't lose any positions. My number one goal when I look at it out there and listen to the members, I want to be a president to stand up and say, not one EAS person was ever laid off. And come March 25th, I'm guaranteed that. Now, we may not be working in the same facility. You may not be working in the same department, but you're going to have a job, is what they're saying. Pat Donahoe, he'll be here Monday addressing the crowd. Hopefully he'll say that. If he doesn't say it, somebody needs to ask him that question. But he's asserted to me that he doesn't want to be a person to lay off one member. If a NAPS member or EAS employee goes to leave the post office, it'll be his or her choice to leave. It won't be because we didn't have a job for them. Anything else on that I've forgotten about?
No, I want to thank you. Again, the concern is with a 15 million hour work hour reduction, and we have employees working about 500 to 1,000 hours already, that is the concern. That's all.
Yeah, you know those numbers, Joe, and I have to say this, and it's heartening. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Those work hours, we working 10 and 12 hours a day and not getting paid for it. Why don't we show that we're working those hours? We will have something tangible to bring back to them. We need to do that. That's definitely. Hey, I realize that. And again, you know, people are doing what they have to do. They're either scared or they just want to do the job because the boss says this and that. But we realize that. But we're our own worst enemy. And when the next you bid out of that job and somebody replace you, you're making it hard on that replacement because they think they're going to accomplish the same thing that you accomplished. You were doing it in 12 hours. I want to work 8 hours and go home to my family. So thanks for that question. Joe Amos is a very active person. He keeps me busy on the email circuit, and he really cares about his members. And we need to answer his questions, so it's good.
Microphone 4.
Does anybody else has anything? Okay, good. No, you keep that.
Yeah.
State your name and your height.
Hey, don't pick on her.
Munchkins of the world unite.
Yay, yay.
I'm Patty Lynn, Branch 296, Fort Lauderdale. And on the same note that was just spoken of, what are we doing about automatic clock rings? Our supervisors are automatically in for 8 hours. Our managers are automatically in for 8 hours. A manager is required, and I don't know if it's happening every place else, but it's happening in South Florida. Managers are required to work on Saturdays sometimes. Guess what? Their clock rings don't show that they work on Saturday. Their clock rings show that they're off on Saturday. And when they're not there on Wednesday, if they get a compensatory day off, the clock rings show that they're there. We're falsifying our own documents, and upper management is telling us, do not swipe your badge, do not ask for the clock rings to be fixed. We need to do that. We need to have permission to keep our records honest.
We do, and I would sign a 1260 and give it to him. If he denied, then there was other news. He's the one that's falsified now and denying it. But I would always, if I work more than those 8 hours, whatever time period, you got a right to swipe your badge so that you were there. If he said don't swipe your badge, go to the 1260 and sign it.
Louis, put that in the postal supervisor so people feel they have a leg to stand on, please. Thank you.
Okay, we just got to remember that. Thank you, Patty.
Microphone 2. Microphone 2 over here.
Hey, Louis.
How are you doing? My favorite Georgia person.
John Harris Branch, 567.
Okay, that's enough, George. Go to mic 4.
Oh, it just got much worse on you, sir. But at any rate, I'd like to thank you guys for the increasing communication that you guys been doing ever since you've been in office, as far as the web, Facebook, and various other outlets. I really appreciate that. 204Bs. What is your stance, what is our stance, especially at this juncture? The 25th is coming, ES jobs are going to be lost, and you know, you did say that Donahue said that he wasn't going to try not to lay off anybody. But see, the thing is, in my plan, I have people who worked as 204Bs for 5 years straight. And I know other people have other horror stories, and I didn't want to pontificate, but I am going to elaborate. I had Saturday and Sunday off. They bring a 204B from another tour, give them Sunday and Monday, and change my days to Wednesday and Thursday. So now you know I'm 38 hot behind that one.
Yes, you should be.
Now, that's the example, you know, that's part of what the problem is, you know, because see now 204Bs or acting supervisors or whatever, they are supposed to supplement the workforce. But when you're using them as part of the workforce and treating them better than you do a regular Form 50 supervisor, I have a major with that. So what do you guys think?
Okay, you know, if I would have been here last week, I said we need to make sure that we document that. 5 years is about 4 years, 11 months, and 2 weeks too long. But we need to fight for those jobs and go to them and find out, get a stand by the district manager, plant manager, whoever is over that 204B area, and find out exactly what are their plans. We need to take their plans, and they just say we're just going to use them, we need to drive it up higher. We need the local presidents to bring that issue up to us. We would gladly. But let's step back. I just read where 204Bs will not be allowed. So more work is going to fall upon us unless a supervisor is missing in action for 2 weeks, on vacation or sick leave. Now, not too many supervisors I know take 2 weeks off at a time. Usually it's a week or so. So that means what's going to happen. We need clarification exactly on how that work is going to be replaced. Supervisors to do that function. There's going to always be a need for 204Bs on emergency and sick leave. And here a day off and there the day off, you know, when you apply for supplemental annual leave. But we don't need it to be consistent. We could establish a cadre of relief supervisors to take part of that. That's going to be our request once we find out and they answer the question, okay, we've been after getting rid of talking about the 204Bs, you finally took care of that. But now what are you going to do to replace it? If I'm in the plant, am I going to be expected to work 2 operations or 3? And we need to get clarification on headquarters concerning that issue to answer that. But we need the presidents to establish, say, this position's been there for 5 years, 4 years, or 2 months. What are our plans? What are your plans to fill that position? Are you going to carry the 204B so we can do it? Because the plant manager knows it takes them to get the mail out, but they don't want to ask for a regular full-time position that helps NAPS establish financial strength by their dues and financial strength through membership and larger numbers. They don't do it. We need to make sure that we are following up on those long-term 204Bs.
Jay, the work teams that you established for the NDCs, do you have any preliminary findings or anything yet? Because I did want to talk with you about that at some point during
Okay,
time we're together.
but I wanted to go back to your first question before touching on your second question. And I'm going to ask you all a question. By a show of hands, how many of you in your management careers have ever had to deal with aggressive union stewards? Show of hands. Well, you never ask a question that you don't know the answer. What we need to get to a point is that every time management makes a decision that impacts somebody in NAPS, they have to know that they're going to deal with an aggressive NAPS representative that's going to ask the question, why are you doing that? You know, it got to a point when I was a station manager and I had to do a holiday schedule for an office that had 168 city routes in one building. The union would sit there and wait for me to post the schedule, and then they'd file grievances, and I'd have to give people off that should have been working and vice versa. Finally, I figured it out, that I worked with the union to set up the holiday schedule, right? And it worked out. But I knew every time I made a decision, if it was not contractually correct, I was going to hear from them. So what's my point? My point in question number one is that when something like this happens, we need to run it up the NAPS flagpole. Start it, and it shouldn't be you as the individual member. It should be the branch officer, preferably somebody that's not in that chain of command. So if it's a customer service person, ask the question in the plant and vice versa. Because we all know they shouldn't be doing it. We let them get away with it. And then people just thumb their nose at us, and then we get a call at NAPS headquarters like the question. What's our position? Our position is that you shouldn't have your schedule changed to accommodate a 204B. But we need to, when we go to L'Enfant Plaza, they'll say, well, what did the district say? What did the area say? And because we have such an open policy, if you call NAPS headquarters, one of us talks to you. As long as you remember, you get your voice heard at the office. But as far as going back to find out what's happening in Chicago or Atlanta, we need a whole chain of NAPS to deal with that. All right, so now, when things like that are happening, we need to speak up about it. And if you contact us at NAPS headquarters, we in turn alert our people in the field to try to work with you. Now, for those of you who work the mails, there's a new acronym in the Postal Service, NDC. They took over for the BMC. And before the NDC started, the Postal Service had considered contracting all that work out. So we were very pleased to find out that they were going to start NDCs with postal employees in them. But here's the problem with NDCs. They're constantly evolving. Certain levels or tiers of NDCs do certain types of processing, and they keep adding more mail in, adding priority mail, adding tray mail, adding first-class mail. And what's happened is they haven't gone back and reviewed the staffing. So we have some people, anyone show of hands from Pittsburgh here? Pittsburgh NDC was our first foster child. And we got information on the Pittsburgh NDC that they were understaffed by 73 employees. Overtime is at 20%. So we got a couple of NDC representatives around the country, and we've held our initial teleconference, and we're starting to review their flash reports to come up with recommendations that we can give to the Postal Service, because we have the ability to meet with the people that run the NDC at the headquarters level. I don't know why they can't figure this out on their own. They've maximized the use of casuals, which is the 204B of the craft industry, and it's not getting done. And now, when you're short 73 employees, you're understaffed with supervisors, because your supervision is based on the number of employees, right? So we don't know why they can't figure out they have a problem, but we're in the process of putting together the documentation to prove that they have a problem. And we're not just going to go to the headquarters and say, you got a problem. We're going to try to give them a solution. Because you know what? Everyone in the Postal Service is great at complaining. But after we finish complaining, we have to give them a solution. Because after all, we're managers. We should know how to fix it. So that's the strategy we're using at headquarters and with the board, is when we see a problem, and Ben Clapp, as our board chairman, comes to all our consultative meetings that we hold every month. And we bring up issues, and we bring up possible solutions. Now, is it working all the time? No, the process could work a lot better. But what we need to do is what we're doing with the NDCs, and we're looking for more people who work in NDCs to help us with this information. Now, we did the same thing in maintenance. We had a maintenance restructuring, and we brought people in from the field for maintenance. We brought them in several times to headquarters, and then we started doing teleconferences with them. And we were able to work through a maintenance restructuring. In about 2 weeks, we're doing the same thing with sales, which is for a lot of people that don't know anything about sales, we have monstrous issues in sales. And we're going to employ subject matter experts from sales to help us so that when we ask the question and the Postal Service gives us an answer, they're not going to be able to lie to us, because I worked in operations. And people in sales can you think you can make numbers spin. People in sales, they can turn one stamp into $40 million in sales. And if you listen to a sales presentation, you'd want to know why we just don't have money coming out every window in every post office in the country, but the fact is it's not. So that, hopefully that addresses your NDC issue. Anybody that you know that has background in NDC, if they'd send their name and contact information, call NAPS headquarters or send an email to NAPS headquarters, we'll try to get you on the team until right now we only have 4 members, and we would like to have a cross-section of the whole country. All right, did that address your NDC question? John? Yes. Okay, very good. And Kathy?
Kathy Clapp, Oregon State President, Branch 940. I just recently have dealt with 15 different people who have been impacted for a different reason from each other. One of them was a duo impacted, one was a directed reassignment, consolidation and closures. And as we've gone through the process, there's so many different rights based upon the impact, and dealing with a district manager and HR manager who we've really never dealt with this before, it would be very helpful if NAPS could put together a very clear, concise process chart for us to use, so that if I have an impacted employee, I know that this person is impacted because of work service credits, they have 30 days, how are they handled under ELM 415, if this person's a duo impacted employee, this is the process that's followed, so that we don't get many different answers based upon where you're asking and different officers getting different information. So I'm asking headquarters to put that together for us as a quick reference. Thank you.
Yeah, I think all 3 of us want to hop on that, but Jay?
I want to have an opportunity to address that, Kathy. This week at our board meeting, which follows the legislative training seminar, the board is going to be given training on the RIF process, so they'll know what the rules are. We also have some documentation that we're going to give them that has all the rules and regulations and some notes that we've developed at NAPS headquarters to help first the board members get through the process, and they in turn are going to issue that to the field. So so that we can be successful in making sure that our rights are protected under all of the appropriate statutes. Now, with that said, again, as I said in my standing remarks, is that's why we have to communicate with each other, because in the beginning, when they were doing the SWIX impacts, people were being told on Tuesday they had to leave by Friday. So we got that fixed. We got a 30-day hold on that. Now, when the WSC started, when they started implementing rules that they already had about station managers, you know, we had station managers in positions that they made that by the rules shouldn't have been there. They were telling them on Tuesday that they had to find a job by Friday. So we got Megan Brennan to issue a letter that would give them a 30-day period, first for us to review to make sure that they were following the rules, and to give that person an opportunity to find some other employment rather than having 48 hours to move. So we're going to continue to monitor that. We need you to monitor it, the board and every member in the country, so that if you don't know, if you think your rights are being violated, guess what? They probably are. Yeah. So you need to communicate through the chain, and we're going to be giving the information out to the board, which will in turn roll to every branch president in the country about what your rights are.
Well, it would be really helpful if you could put it on your website, so that if I'm representing somebody, if
Yeah.
I'm not a branch president, that the advocate can go directly to your website and say, it's this type of employee, this is what you need to follow, and there's a quick reference for them to follow, because you're going to get a maverick HR manager out there somewhere who's going to say, I can't do that because, and make up their own rules. So
Good point,
thank you.
Kathy. We
We'll
can do
have,
that.
we had another recommendation about the steps in closing post office and things. I think D. Perez said we need to have that on our website. That's going to be done also.